as I said yesterday, we can't throw a gig like this one without the absolute giants of Ubisoft. They're one of the top 3 developers on the world, and they've given us more than 30 different, no, not 30, they got more than 30 years of experience. In game development, they're one of the top 3 in the world, and the studio in Sofia is so big, they're responsible for 18 different games. Our next speaker has worked on almost every last one of them. He's the senior lead artist at Ubisoft Sofia. Please welcome on stage, Biser Parashkevov. Thank you.
Hello. Oh, I'm here. So, thank you. I'm really glad that I'm here with so many people, enthusiasts and fans of games, of game development and stuff. So, thank you for you presenting me. Few more words about me. So, as you understood, I'm the lead environment artist at the moment, and I take care of the environment teams and the prop creation teams, which create these beautiful pictures, these beautiful stories. So when we say story, I was wondering how to approach a talk in front of people who are in the game industry. And it's a subject which is really interesting for me, for the people in the studio, and I guess for everybody who is playing and developing games. And this is the art of telling a story. And today I want to talk more in details about how we create stories. So, as we all play games, we create nice memories from these games. We go back from time to time to them. We create really interesting friendships. So this is how we call the immersion. This is the ability for you to go and really feel the mood of the game, the mood of the story. And this immersion, as you can see, there is not a pretty picture here, but it's more infographic. So I want to divide it, the immersion in 3 main things, how we create an immersion. This is first and foremost, at least for people like me and Borisov, which with him we work a lot. So this is the visual part. The next part, which is more or less about the story, this is the narrative team who creates interesting developed stories about the main character, about the world we are playing in. And last but not least, the design teams, the level design team, the game design team, and all other designers which are working to create our fun. So what is the really interesting topic to me is the visual storytelling, which is the kind where story, narrative, and visual match together. As you all know, we have storytelling 40,000 years ago. This is the first developed picture. The picture you see here is from our own cave Magura, which is here in Bulgaria. It's 8 to 10,000 years. But you see people from our predecessors from ages ago, they started to develop stories. They want to tell a story, they want to create something really unique in this experience. And this continued through the ages in different medias, in different types of stories. We have writing after that discovered. And we come to more classical art, where the storytelling is kind of key to every painter. I've selected these 2 pictures from one of my favorite painters, Caspar Friedrich. You can go and search in the internet. There are a lot of analysis what this picture means. And every single scientist has his theory about them. But what they are interesting for is the type of immersion they tell you. So you see on the, sorry, there is a laser here. So on the picture with the person standing in front of quote. The name is, sorry, Wander Above the Sea of the Fog. So this guy tells you a story of a good experience which is in front of him. This is something which we are doing in the games. The next image is a mountain landscape. This is something which you want to go there and experience your stories. So how we, more or less, we can translate this in our games. Today's talk, I'll use examples from the last two games I worked on it. They're pretty different as type of gameplay and a type of experience we want to portray to the player, but what makes them common is the way we tell stories in them. So we have the Division 2 and the last DLC that we made, The Last Castle, which is strictly linear gameplay, which more or less we can associate with corridors. And the Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Curse of the Pharaohs, which is one of the biggest, most famous open world games in the world. So these two games present to the player different experience, different type of gameplay, different type of fun, but what makes them common for us developers, and for you also, is the way we can tell our stories. So when we talk about the immersion and telling a story, we need to have in mind that a good world is the world that we can feel that it's big, enormous, almost endless, and alive. And players can experience their stories or the stories we present them, but they can relate to. They can say, yeah, this is probably an interesting world. I want to go there if it was real. And presenting these interesting settings where the player can relate, it's really, really important for us to create a clear setting. So people more or less perceive the stories as something which is part of our lives, which is something natural and something recognizable. And at the same time, when we experience these stories, it's good to give the player the choice and the opportunity to make decisions. Am I going there? Am I going here? What I have to do here? Is it a puzzle? Is it threatening me? Is it something which will make a memorable cinematic? So these things are part of our work and how we present them on the screen. And last but not least, when we create a good, huge world, it's good to tell the player that he can explore it and to stimulate this exploration. So when we are talking about big worlds, we can start with creating and defining the context for us. This is an example of one of our levels from The Last Castle, the Pentagon. So everybody can imagine what the Pentagon is. It's a huge, boring building made of stone with very well, very good arranged parking lots, and everything there is a military order. So in order to make this interesting, we start pitching ideas, and we were discussing how we can make this place memorable. So we came with several events which can shape the experience of the player. So we've worked with what nature can do to this, what people can do to this, how the architecture can react, and how we can show these things with our props and with our models and our lightings. So based on this, we have a concept which more or less gives our context and can relate everybody to this place. Yeah, it's the Pentagon, and it's not the boring military order, and it's something which creates a different perspective of the world. So what we have here is a natural disaster, a big flooding from the near river, and attack from the major military forces, your enemies, the Black Tusks. So these two things combined gives our interesting context in the moment. So based on all these ideas and iterations, we have this is a final, this is a screenshot from the game, the final shot where you, the first thing we reveal the pentagon to the player. We have 4 players, as you know, the game is multiplayer. So the context here for the player is presented clearly, and he understands, or we hope we understand, what he will experience. And when we talk about context and pushing the reality in certain degrees, twisting some levers, it's a good thing to make a balance between the reality and the exaggeration that we want to push. So there is 2 extremes that we explored. This is the reality, which is boring. You see the colors, you see the sky, the atmosphere is something which everybody can see in photos. And this is a pretty nice concept from our art director, Eddie Benon, which pushes the extreme, the exaggeration of the place, how the Giza Plateau could look like 3,000 years ago. So these were 2 things that we need to find balance and make them credible. So with more or less iterations, discussions, we felt that this is the credible place to go. We've pushed the extremes in certain places, but we've put back a lot of the vegetation, which currently nobody can see. We've put some additional temples, which nobody can see now. And this makes the place really interesting. And when we talk about interesting places, some of the principles we need to explore and we need to push is the unity and diversity. What does this mean? When we create a credible world, here you can see an example of a harbor with military location from Assassin's Creed. We create a lot of military locations, and the game mechanics of the game are based on military locations. And more or less in a world with certain historical background, they look the same. So we are searching for certain things which can make the character of this place. A memorable feature which make you ring a bell. Next time when you go there, you see, aha, okay, this is the castle or the military location with the sheepdogs. And this iteration go through every single location in order to have a good world which is unified and at the same time has a character every place where you visit. Talking about places, some of the things which we experienced during the Division 2 production process was this linearity. So this was something new to us, and we had a great opportunity and challenge to make a new experience telling stories in a linear corridor game. So one of the things we've pushed was the clear thematic. Where you go needs to be really, really understandable from the get-go. When I open the door, is it a tunnel? Is it a basketball hole? So everybody can relate to these places. In this case, you see a Cold War bunker. So the repetition of pillars tells you this is something industrial. The type of materials, yeah, probably this is very old. And all these small details comes on top of the main volumes of the place. So this is the Cold War bunker, and at the same time, you know, the Cold War bunker is a place where militaries store some things, and there will be order, and there will be repetitive, and probably it will be boring. So in these places, more or less, we find interesting moments where people can orient themselves, and make the place memorable. So next time when you meet a friend and say, hey, do you remember the place, the Cold War bunker, but there was an exploded plane or something like this. There are a lot of micro stories in this place. And all these micro stories and the thematic of the place is something which we push with the focus on on the location and the narrative of the whole beat. So you can see here, it's an extraction from early process, prototype of a, how to call it, arena. It's a fight arena, again, in Division, where level design, game design, and art meets to discuss what this place could be. Because it serves the purpose of a certain gameplay type we want to show, of a certain experience that we want to challenge to the player. So what we need a certain metrics, which work with the cover, certain distance, which works with the technical restrictions, and that's it. But nobody will remember this. Actually, if you see this in a AAA game, you will remember it, I'm sure. But in order to remember the experience in it, we start discussing what these things could be. So the guys, level design and artists meet together and say, hey, I have an idea. Probably this could be a warehouse. Yeah, but we have warehouse 2 streets away from here. So it will repeat the thematic. So what we don't have, or what we can make interesting, probably this could be a laboratory. So yeah, let's make it laboratory. And when we say laboratory, it still serves the purpose of the gameplay. It fits the metrics, but tells the story what happened here. It's a laboratory which was robbed and demolished by the bad guys. And as you can see, there are fake depth here and on the other side, which creates you the feeling that all processes which are natural for a laboratory are there. You don't have anything to do with them. You don't have buttons or levers to push, but you, as a player, as a visitor, you experience something which could be really interesting for you. And when we say less is more, this is the type of principle we use when we want to push a focus of certain place. So putting one type of desks with few type of laboratory machines, this automatically gives you the feeling of the place. And at the same time, something which is really helpful for us is to use principles from the theaters, so-called set dressing. And in our language, it's called propping, but it's the same principle. We want to create a scene which more or less push your mood there or your knowledge. And all these processes of creating a focused place are based on our research and our inspiration. What we are doing, and I encourage everybody to do, is the mood boards. They are our friends, they are our foes, and they can inspire us. So one of the things started as an inspirational board from a movie, a picture from internet, even a sketch from a historical guy or research. And all these things combined, analyzed, can give us our story. And if something doesn't fit or is missing, based on all these things, we can create our picture so it's believable and it's logical for our players. And when we create stories, talking about logic, we as people, we are logical animals. We search reasoning, we search why, answers to the question why and what this happened, why this happened, what's going on here. And this logic throughout the whole game should be consistent and should follow more or less the rules that we've set up and we've teach the player. What we have here is a quick example of a logic, and I'll explain and elaborate on this. So the word logic behind this place, this is a place for dyeing clothes. In ancient Egypt, you see people on the streets, they are wearing certain type of clothes. You see their colors, and what for a living world misses, probably where this is the place where the clothes are produced. And for production of quotes, you need, you need the actual quote. In order to create the feeling of this world, which has the colors which match the culture, let's create a place where all these quotes are dyed. So a huge place which creates you the illusion of dying quotes near the river is kind of an answer what happens to these people, how these people get these quotes. And it works with the logic once it's seen in several types of locations, in several variations, but you see the same process. The same thing with the world logic. There is another example from Assassin's Creed Origins. But we are out of picture. I can continue telling stories, but as you know, Amy, do you know what's the reason to be out of picture? Не, тук има. Okay, so there are a lot of difficulties to overcome, be it technical, and we have another story how my presentation disappeared. But it will be for the next game, I think. So when we talk about world logic, there is another example from Assassin's Creed Origins, and this is a huge bakery complex. This bakery complex was made to support certain religion rituals in the nearby temple, and the people believed if they have a certain clay model of their body, it will be healed. So in order to tell this story to the players, and this is something which is really and historically justified, we've created a whole complex which deals with this process. So we're talking about creating an industry-like process, which gives you the start and gives you the end. What happens in between? So we have the place where we extract, we have the place where we bake, and also we have the place where we throw away the low-quality products. Another story appears. Nope.
Now you can give us 1,000 words for each picture.
Amazing. I can dance, and you can tell the stories. I don't know. Anybody? Anywhere?
Проекторът работи, нали? А тук е проблемът.
Ta-da! And I just received 10 minutes more, right? Or just 10 minutes. It's okay, it's not a bonus. Okay, next time. So I have pretty much stories to tell. When we are talking about stories, telling a story through a hero asset, a prop, is something which we can experience in the world. And be it a small, a huge, or a variety of certain props, they can push our story. The example here is, again, from the last castle. This is the internal yard of the Pentagon, and this is your main gameplay objective. You need to destroy this thing. This is a drilling machine which needs to go down underground. Dig a hole and extract a certain thing. I won't spoil the whole mission to the guys who didn't play it yet. But again, this is something which supports the gameplay, the narrative, and it's interestingly visual. And there is a quick process how is the long story short. So we have the prototype based on a really interesting drill machine which exists in the world, but this doesn't fit our faction's design. So we've gone through many iterations and we have this design here, which matches the design of the faction, which matches their high technology profile, and which also serves the gameplay. And we have here the final product, and we need to destroy a few elements on it. And it's walkable. So a lot of iteration on a certain single prop with a lot of people involved can tell you the whole story of this beat. And when we are talking about enemies, it's good to talk a little bit for creating a conflict. This tells you a story. Here the conflict is not created by the level artist, but the level artist creates the atmosphere which gives the opportunity for the conflict. So creating a swamp in ancient Egypt populated by the system of the animals, it's one type of conflict where you can see, you can watch, or you can be an active part of it. Another type of conflicts that we can expose to the player, we can tell a story is the conflicts in the society, conflicts between people, and there is no need to be a gameplay character. It could be a simple NPC walking and sharing your problem, sharing his problem. And talking about level art, one of our instruments are the art instruments. When we tell stories, we can use all the tools which we know from the art fundamentals. You are familiar with all the things we use, are the silhouettes, the epic vistas, the rhythm in shapes, and how we combine them. We can really make good and interesting shapes, interesting locations, so you can feel every time a different story. Talking about composition, this is something which we can use also in linear games. How we guide the player's attention using framing, using leading lines, and small landmarks. These are instruments which are very, very extensively used in photography and filmmaking. And when we have a certain opportunity to use them, I assure you it's a real pleasure to feel like a cameraman in an open world game or linear game. But what will be the storytelling without color and white? So we use the colors of the objects to tell what their materials are, how they are made. But we use the white to create a certain emotion, to create a certain mood. So in this particular, is there red? Okay, there is something red. But it's very, very vibrant red, which creates the immersion feeling of the player. There is a danger in front of him, and this is just because of the white threat. And they, again, they fit the purpose of the whole mission, and they tell you the story of an emergency alarm throughout the whole Pentagon. But in calm places, we can use more neutral white just to guide your navigation through the place and probably show you something interesting, a historical moment, a good interesting information. So these things on the wall, if you go there, there is no fight. You can go and read the information. So this information is kind of historic. It's checked, and it fits the purpose of the Pentagon and its corridors to serve like museums. Open world games also have this kind of tunnel feeling sometimes. It's very rare, but we use them to just narrow the perspective of the player and guide him to another location where we use the contrast to give an opportunity and make an interesting moment. So the contrast, we play with the structure versus organic contrast, the dense versus scatter, the dark versus white. All these elements contrast one against another are instruments that we can combine in different situations and in different occasions. Again, the contrast, but in a different type of game. So this scene, you can see it when you end a certain fight. So you explore the narrative of the events which happened. You see the environment is demolished. We oppose the straight versus curves. We oppose the vertical versus horizontal. Contrast can be colorful versus monochromatic. In this case, the flooded food court of the Pentagon has the monochromatic green, brownish color scheme, and we have the contrast of the red. So this red serves several purposes. This is your next objective. This is to tell you the story that the bad guys stored their explosive there, and this is the way out from the place. So with a certain white contrasting against the whole environment, we just fill in the story and make your experience memorable. So that was really quick experiment to tell you several stories. Thank you. And I guess we have
some time for some questions,
okay,
if there's any.
Amazing.
If anybody's got a question, just raise your hand.
I have a bit technical question. In these Assassin's Creed screenshots, everything looks like a free random geometry. Is it really like that? Do you have any metric restrictions for the props? Or
Yeah,
they're
sure.
just
So all the rules which gives us the tools to make comfortable gameplay. So you've played Assassin's Creed. You know
no,
that
I
you know
haven't,
the navigation there is a great pillar. So in order to work, we need to follow the certain metrics which are known to everybody, which makes this game. And and the big challenge in front of the level artist, the environment artist, is to make these elements. We don't have presentation again, but it's time. The challenge in front of the artist is to make this thing not look like cubes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, because
so the dressing on top of it tries to hide the illusion of these metrics.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Does this answer your question?
Yeah.
Any more questions? For the senior lead artist. No more questions? If there are none, let's thank Biser and Ubisoft Sofia for participating today.
Thank you.
We're going to take a 10-minute break, so see you in about 10 minutes. Yeah, let's say 10.